and the theme for this session is evolving business models against the backdrop of disruptive technologies revolutionizing the CX in the next decade. For which I would like to introduce you to the moderator of this session, Mr. Hemant Jain, Senior EVP and Head Digital Business, Lokmat Media Private Limited. Can we please have a huge round of applause for him wherever we are sitting in all different backgrounds. Hemant is a leader with over 2 decades of experience in digital media and technology space, delivering step function growth for leading companies. Let's warmly welcome our other esteemed panelist, post our moderator.
Thank you, Arjun. Pleasure being on the panel today.
The pleasure is all ours to have you, sir. Welcoming our first panelist, Mr. Sreeji, Head Insights and Analytics, Farm Equipment Sector and SSU Mahindra & Mahindra Limited. Sreeji is a data science strategy consulting leader with 17 years of hands-on experience in management, consulting, strategy, and predictive analytics solution. Please, let's have a huge round of applause for Mr. Sreeji. Welcoming our next panelist, Mr. Sreeji Gopinathan, Global CIO, Lupin Limited. Sreeji begins.
Thank you.
Mr. Sreeji brings with him more than 20 years of significant domain experience and expertise in global experience. He has led various SAP projects, M&A integrations, healthcare informatic projects, warehouse and material management automation, etc. Can we please have a huge round of applause for Mr. Sreeji? Welcoming our next panelist, Mr. Chander Khanduja, CIO, Luminous India. Mr. Chander is a technocrat with insightful knowledge of business process, analysis and design, re-engineering process, rationalization, cost control, performance measurement, and quality, with more than 23 years of rich and qualitative experience. Can we please have a huge round of applause for him?
Thank you.
Welcoming our next panelist, Mr. Vijay Chand, Country Director and CEO, Publishing Division, Realtime Taxsutra Services Private Limited. Mr. Vijay, with more than 15 years of experience, leads high-performing teams and works directly with customers to deliver solutions. He helps everyone along the way to tell their stories through strategic communication and marketing initiatives. Can we please have a huge round of applause for Mr. Vijay? Last, but definitely not the least, let's welcome our next panelist, Mr. Ketan Kulkarni, CMO and Head Business Development, Blue Dart. Mr. Ketan is an experienced leader with 23 years of industry experience. He's a leader with proficient marketing and business development strategies. And from now, I would like to hand over the conversation to our esteemed moderator.
Thank you so much. I would like to first thank you everyone for joining us live today, and I'm extremely happy to have such a fabulous panel with us today. Business leaders and custodians of customer experience with diverse backgrounds and industry verticals. 2020 has indeed been a testing year for all of us. While several industries struggle for business, a few of them thrived. In the midst of this, customer experience fast-tracks several technology and business imperatives. With social distancing measures in place and e-commerce becoming the primary sales opportunity for many brands and companies, organizations have had to quickly innovate and leverage technology for customer interactions. 2021-22 is an opportunity for organizations to build upon this progress. Digitizing customer interactions is one thing, but making these verticals valuable and meaningful is another. With this in mind, let's hear from our esteemed panelists some of the top trends in CX best suited to drive growth and innovation for the respective organizations as we all move into financial year 21-22. I would like to kick off this discussion with Sreeji. Sreeji, would love to hear your views and some of the key strategies which your organization is planning to drive in with in fiscal 21-22. Over to you, Sreeji.
Thanks, Hemant. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. Thanks for the question. So I'm with Lupin, and we are in the pharmaceutical industry. So as you can imagine, for us, customers can be multidimensional. It starts with the doctors, the patients, and also the stores, right? So those are the three big dimensions of the conventional customer, so to say, from an external point of view. But there are a lot of other stakeholders also in this journey, if you think about it. So, first and foremost, for us to make a real impact, in terms of how our customers see it, experience is the most important thing. And how do we make it simple for them? And as you can imagine, the doctors, so to say, there is a mixture of senior, and not so senior, people involved in there. So the preferences are also quite varied. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that it is not one size fits all approach. So we need to be able to understand what the preferences are and then cater to those requirements accordingly. But what last year has done, similar to any industry, the digitization and the ways of connecting through digital mechanisms and what we call as the omni-channel experience, that has significantly accelerated. So, in terms of that, I think it has been, we joke, right? Who actually, really facilitated the digital conversion, whether it is a CDO, CIO, CEO, or COVID. And I think it is COVID. It has really accelerated, that process. So what we have been talking about and discussing for quite some time has actually started happening. And a lot of the fence sitters, even in the customer area, has actually started adopting this new ways of working. And I think we will reach a new normal. As we see, there will still be some conventional people who would prefer the conventional ways of connecting, but more people are now coming on to this new ways of working. Now, if I really look at it, what exactly do we do there? There are ways we connect through our medical representatives when they go and talk to the doctors, show the content that we want to show to them, detail what the medicines that we are trying to make available for the doctors to prescribe, etc. There's a lot of digital content that we show to them now face to face. Now that we are seeing them face to face again, but there is also a lot of content distribution that happens in a very targeted way, depending on the therapy also, like whether it's a cardio doctor or diabetes doctor or neuro doctor, etc. So depending on that, we cater to that very, very in a targeted manner. And then we also understand actually for this particular doctor, this is still a journey. I mean, we are not completely there. For this particular doctor, what actually is really working in terms of consumption of the content and what actually doesn't work, what he doesn't like to see at all. So that kind of insights we're trying to gather and make it as targeted as possible. Now, if I look at the patient, the journey in terms of trying to fix an appointment, make that consultation. If a face-to-face is needed, then how do we make that as seamless as possible, as contactless as possible? And then, the follow-on consultations, can it be digital and only go in if it is really needed, etc. So that's a journey that is actually facilitated by the telemedicine platforms and combined with the other mechanisms to go into the hospital if needed. So it's a mixture again, and it's an evolving, as this theme of the session is. It is an evolving scenario that we are seeing, but it's very, very interesting. What gets more interesting is in some of the therapies, the devices that they use. For example, a respiratory care. If they have a device that they need to use for inhaling, how do we make sure, especially the elderly and those who need care, how do we make sure that they are indeed taking the dosage at the right times, at the right frequency, and the right, for the right, number of sprays, etc. So that is very, very interesting area, getting very personalized. And if that person who is needing the care is not able to receive our communication, we can even use the ecosystem around there, who is providing the care to make sure that this is done appropriately. So there are platforms emerging in this area, which makes the care also very, very personalized. So you can see that the customer experience is multidimensional, omni-channel, and it's very exciting times ahead.
Thank you, Sreeji, for your views. And what we have, in fact, seen during COVID and post-COVID, the importance of healthcare industry, there is a very large emphasis in automating some of the traditional processes. And you have always been dealing with a multidimensional, challenge, which is how do you connect well with the doctors, empower them with more information, knowledge, where content plays an important role. And what earlier used to be a conversation between a medical representative and a doctor is now being further enabled and complemented with use of technology and digitized content. And on the other hand, you have a much important KPI, which is your connect with the consumers at large. And I think so there, a lot of leading pharma brands have a role of creating an ecosystem around it to kind of enable a lot of funneling activity around final sales and transaction, etc. So thank you so much for your views. And I would now move to our next panelist with the same question, trying to understand, I'll move on to Chander and I'll try to understand from him in his organization and his industry vertical, what are some of the CX steps which they plan to take in the coming year, which would help them meet their larger KPIs. Over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Hemant, for this very nice question. And it's today very apt to discuss about CX experience, which probably I think was not a center stage topic probably 2 or 3 years back. I think with everyone engaging with their customers, at least in last 1 year, 80 to 90% of engagement with the end customers was happening only through digital platforms. So we are into a business of, we are a home electronics company, and we are primarily into inverter batteries, fans, switches, solar equipments. And our customers traditionally has been, we are a B2B company whereby as far as sales is concerned, but as far as service is concerned, we are a B2C company. And also, obviously, with e-commerce being a very important part of our entire retail customer engagement, I think this is the entire ecosystem, which is very, very important to our strategy. How do we grow and kind of create a customer delight? So organization created a digital strategy almost 4 or 5 years back that was connected people, connected products, connected processes, and connected plants, which is today a case study also at IIM Ahmedabad, how customer delight was created by Indian company using digital platforms. So what has happened is we have seen when we went to market and we started looking around about 2 or 3 years back, we started interviewing our customers. What are you looking forward from a company like ours? So it was a kind of a total eye opener, because they never view you as a manufacturing company. They will start comparing with you with probably what Uber is doing for them, what Zomato is doing for them. And that is was kind of a, I would say, eye opener for a lot of marketing guys as well, because we never thought that our end customers are really looking forward to this kind of engagement from our side, and they are so much digital savvy. I think this came as a, I would say, more of a learning lesson for us. Like you cannot presume what your customers want. And customers, I would say, needs and wants are changing every day. So this is where we said, okay, we don't have a very engaging platforms right now. So let's start creating our journey. Since the customer, they are talking about what is happening with Uber, or they are expecting today, suppose a service guy is there. So they're expecting how a pizza is getting delivered. We should have a visibility. Where is the service guy? Where is his stock? How much time he will take? When will is going to reach to us? How will we be able to rate his service, whether the digital engagement platforms will be there or not. So we created an entire ecosystem around creating a customer delight, whereby we said we are almost 2,000 people on the field every day. And to imagine, earlier we were thinking from a perspective of a company, how do we control these people in terms of, since they are authorized service providers, they are in field or not. But now the entire ball game changed. From controlling it changed to how are you able to create a customer experience for the customers these 2,000 guys are serving to. So from the service side, we created a digital platform, which was called CoreS, whereby it is a completely engaging platform for entire service needs. Then a very important aspect which came about was from our B2B customers, because earlier we are having our almost 30,000 dealers, and which are served through around about 2,000 plus distributors. So earlier what was happening was our more engagement was from a distributor side, but we always were engaging with dealers through our distributors. So we again created a engaging digital platform called M Partner, whereby we said entire scheme management, which is right now happening all manual. Like we used to send coupons to our dealers, so they used to kind of send back those coupons to a third-party agency. We used to kind of pay them. This entire process used to take almost, once the scheme is launched, almost another 2-3 months to close this. And obviously there were gaps and dissatisfaction was there. A lot of, I would say, hue and cry was there. Some guys will tell you, I have already couriered you the, I would say, coupons, but still you are not received, and my due date was still left. Still I sold the product. So we created entire digital schemes, and almost today 30,000 dealers are participating in those schemes. It's a digital scratch coupons, and which is not kind of envisaged in our kind of industry. I'm not a Paytm. So hereby almost 30,000 dealers today participate in all digital schemes. So we've created a platform which serves all his needs. So I give an example of catalogs. This really helped us during COVID times. I think during COVID times, what was happening was these dealers never had a mechanism to create digital catalogs in their own names. So we created templates for them so that they just fill in their name and they can WhatsApp to their end customers. So this is how, because earlier I am having around about 100, 200 plus catalogs. But now that Real Connect was created during COVID times, whereby we created those templates for them so that they can use for their own consumption. So this is how I think that really helped a lot. Apart from that, we use a lot of technologies in terms of WhatsApp bots, RPAs for our customer sentiment analysis, our IVR-based customer tracking. So I think the entire digital ecosystem, which was already present for us, gave us a lot of headway during COVID times. And this has been, I would say, a good encouragement for us to keep investing in our digital platforms. I give you also one excellent example. Like apart from sales, we also did a lot of talent hunt programs with our dealers. We said super singer concept. We created a super singer concept. So we created our own digital platform like YouTube, whereby the live streaming was done, and these guys participated because we used our own platform. We did not use YouTube, so that it was more engaging. Like so, I think this is how you create that, and now that confidence in, I would say, customer engagement is there. And also one thing I would like to mention, like we have our marketing team is very, very aggressive, and every year they create a new CX for their M partner. That is so you imagine they start from scratch. I think that's a beauty. Otherwise, IT guys take almost 4, 5, 6 months to put a thing together. But after every year, that is thrown in dustbin, and you create a new CX. Because your customer experiences are not static; they're changing every day. I think this is what we are doing just to keep up the pace with customer expectation.
So I think it's very interesting to note here that I want to compliment you for your energy, because in this entire conversation, one thing which really came all through the discussion was that every touch point which was created was keeping the consumer at the center of the entire experience. And the whole journey is about delighting the consumer. And I must say this, and I must indeed confess this, that one industry which never went into lockdown during the COVID times was the courier industry. And what a delight, what a joyful delight. It was so, heart-touching to see those guys relentlessly working day in, day out to deliver your package. And I was so surprised to see the number of Amazon packages which were lying in our complex, suddenly people had started shopping online more than ever. So moving on to somebody who has been championing the cause of customer experience in the courier industry, a name which we all know is like a household name, Blue Dart. And we have got Ketan. And Ketan, I would love to want you to share your views in terms of what are some of the measures. Already, I believe there are certain measures you took last year, which we'll hear in the subsequent discussion. But in 2021-22, what are some of the key things which you're going to bet big on in improvising your customer experience and further delivering delight to all of us?
Thank you. Thank you, Hemant, and the esteemed panel. Very wonderful. I feel the panel you have put together on medicines, on tractors, on logistics, what I represent, fintech, electricals, really listening in from these industries is going to be delightful for me and for the listeners. Essentially, any CX experience, I think, at Blue Dart starts with what will be the business outcome. Because as one of the panel members or you, Hemant, put it rightly, the customer has to be at the center of anything that you design, and that we take very, very seriously. It's not a knee-jerk reaction, though one of my panel colleagues did say that whether it was the CEO, the CIO who accelerated digitization, we don't know, but it certainly was COVID. So it was a kind of knee-jerk for all industries, and I think we kind of speed bumped ourselves and got our balance rather fast, everybody of us, and started running. And we were in fact running from day one. Our lights never went out. A host of new customers signed, because as you rightly said, a lot of people staying at home, shopping from home, and we work with the large e-commerce portals. We are a provider of choice for them. So what we realized that with so much misinformation happening in terms of the new pandemic that had hit us across fronts, one aspect of that was also, the social distancing norms. If you all recollect, in the first few days of the pandemic after the lockdown, even the kind of distance that you were supposed to keep with the other person kept changing on whichever CDC out of any other country or even from India that you listen to. So we needed to immediately regroup, because ours is a very touchy and feely kind of a business, because it involves people and it involves parcels. So those two things essentially impacted hugely by COVID. We also learned in midstream that possibly the brown boxes we move could also carry the virus, but that has kind of phased out now. It dies out very quickly on that brown box. So we had to really implement a new technique called contactless delivery. And all the time over the past so many years that we were delivering shipments, securitized shipments, we move a lot of shipment for banks, the credit debit cards, and also for the e-commerce players. They always wanted us to come back with a signature on the delivery sheet, on the every bill. And suddenly everything matured together. Our customers across sectors matured with us when we told them that if you want us to deliver, we will be doing contactless delivery. Our couriers will possibly not see who receives the shipment, will possibly not ask for an OTP that's generated on his mobile, and will possibly not even ask for a signature. And it was accepted, and we rolled it out very, very smoothly. And it was really surprising for all of us because the center theme there was that we need to protect the health of our couriers and the health of the people receiving the shipment. And that resonated very well across industries. And we moved into a contactless delivery system where possibly today most of our couriers don't even see who the receiver of the shipment is. It is left at his doorstep. He steps back, drops a SMS, etc. So it was a platform that, of course, had a lot of people and digital embedded into it, because you would generally get a SMS shipment that the shipment is coming, etc. So the technology with process and people, I think we married very, very well. And over that period, I created a new term. It's not just tech, it's man tech, because there's so much of human intervention in that tech, whether you design it, whether you process it. So it's not tech that helped us, it's man tech. So that's one good kind of CX experience that we gave our customers. Moving ahead, one important thing now we are trying to do and fortify the platform is the Blue Connect app. We have launched an app on the stores, the iOS and Android stores, and we are moving to now our customers getting an entirely digitized experience. I think it was Chander who said customers expect you to be as good as the best, not just in your industry, but in other industries where they're exposed to, whether it's fintech or whether it's e-commerce, and they give such a brilliant digital experience. So those are the kind of nuances and interventions that we are building into the Blue Dart app for an entirely digital shipment moving experience, where you could reschedule the shipment, ask us to leave it at the door, ask us to leave it with the neighbor, hold it at our location, change the PIN code, the delivery address, everything on a digital platform, very, very smooth, I think. And that's going to be the exciting phase for us in 2021. Thank you, Hemant.
Thank you, Ketan. Very, very enriching to understand how an existing industry which operated for years took this as an opportunity and kind of reinvented some of the existing processes, made it more tech-enabled, e-enabled, keeping the consumer in mind. Thank you so much for your views. I'll quickly move on to Vijay. Vijay, I've been waiting to hear from you based on our initial conversations on the WhatsApp groups. Very exciting. But before you spill the beans on some of the exciting stuff you've done, if you could just share with us some of the key interesting things which you're going to be working for the next fiscal, which is 21-22.
Sure. I think, I mean, before I get to what Taxsutra is really doing, in terms of top CX trends, when I look at how consumer behavior has changed in terms of how people actually take buying decisions, I think 70% plus buying decisions are now being taken by people even before they actually directly or indirectly engage with the brand. That journey has now become so strong that with the kind of information available to people, either directly through the brand or through the communities that they are a part of, the decision-making process is almost at 70%. So the brand actually comes in much later. The people come in much later. The sales teams, the marketing teams come in much later. And as I lean back on the time that I have spent, and I'm sure all my other esteemed panelists have either directly or with their communication channel partners in creating communication strategies, I think from a CX trend perspective, to me, what has become most important in the last 12 months is how effectively do you create value for your customers? And more importantly, how effectively do you communicate this value to your customers? I think that's the number one thing I have observed in the last 12 months. So how effectively do you create value? And how effectively do you communicate that value to your customers? That's number one. Number two, I think the barriers of who from an organization becomes the face in front of the customers has now completely blurred. Everyone is now in sales. Everyone needs to represent the brand, represent the company, and represent the business. For those of you who are fond of LinkedIn and spend a certain amount of time on LinkedIn, I do. And if you've observed Sanjeev Mehta, the chairman and chief executive officer of Hindustan Unilever, look at the frequency of posts, look at the kind of communication, and look at the number of people who are now either following him or looking at the kind of communication that he's bringing to the table. At his level, he's not really worried about the kind of reactions that people come to. I mean, if you look at the post that he's put in the last 2 days, there are multiple views on the video that he's posted that's been put in by Unilever. And this is kind of clearing the air for a point where, irrespective of your designations, irrespective of your positions, irrespective of your functional responsibilities, I think everyone is today becoming more and more responsible for delivering value to their customers. Coming to Taxsutra, we are an organization that kind of evolved ourselves into a company that delivers real-time news and updates to tax professionals. So the communities that we service largely are chartered accountants, corporate tax teams, and the IRS officers, basically the regulators, the buy side and the sell side. For us, one of the positions that we were in a little before the pandemic was that we had multiple platforms that had grown over a period of time and were individually delivering value to customers, either on the direct taxes side or on GST when GST happened, transfer pricing, which is another very important international tax space. And the opportunity that we took during the pandemic, because we are a subscription-based business model, was to technically consolidate everything in one place. So what used to be 7 different platforms has now become taxsutra.com. We launched it in February 2021, 1 year after we conceived this idea. And today customers don't really have to go to 7 different places to get the value that we need to communicate to them, but just to come to taxsutra.com. The platform is now powered by an AI engine, and it gives individual consumers what they are looking after. We have a little over 3,000 entities that subscribe to us. We touch 26,000 lives every single day. And coming back to the point, that is how we've chosen to create and communicate value every single day in the lives of our consumers. That's where I'll stop, Hemant, and thanks for the opportunity, buddy.
Thank you so much. We'll quickly jump to Shrikant. Shrikant, it's been a long wait for you, but now over to you. You're on mute, Shrikant.
Yeah, thank you, Hemant, and it's been great listening to all the panel members. Probably I work for a industry or a company which is maybe not as digital savvy as some of the other examples like Taxsutra and all that we talked about. It's a very traditional company. Mahindra is a market leader in the tractor business, where we sell the tractors to our dealers, some 900 odd dealers, and then they in turn sell the products to the end consumers. So in terms of the CX trends, which I can see in my organization, there are 3 trends which I would like to talk about. So the first one is around the change in mindset. That's very important. So the way our business is looked at is in a traditional manner by our leadership, that, okay, we sell products to our dealers, and then it's the dealer's responsibility to own the customer experience, do the installation, maintain the service, and look at the customer complaints, whatever they are coming. And we would do an annual survey of some customer satisfaction index, and then see where our customer satisfaction index is. So that's the traditional view. However, now the mindset has changed, and the organization is looking at keeping the consumer at a forefront and own up the customer experience. And we are in the process of building a customer experience metric, which is going to be reviewed by our CEO at a regular basis. But before we can reach there is a long journey to be taken up. Today we don't even have the data on a real-time basis that how the customers are rating the installation of the tractors, how the customers are rating the sales experience, how they are rating the service experience. So we don't have control on these things yet, right? So the good thing is the change in mindset has happened, and we have a path to move towards. That's the first trend that I wanted to talk about. The second one is on the change in organization structure. So traditionally, our organization is structured in silos functions. There is a sales function, there's a sales function, a marketing function, and a service function. A sales salespeople, the job is to convert the leads which have been generated by marketing. And then once the customer has been, like, once we have sold the product to the customer, then the service team takes over for the service responsibilities. But there is nobody who is looking at customer experience as a total view, right? So that's where we are kind of seeing a change in mindset and the change in org structure, which is going to be rolled out in the next couple of months as we are speaking, wherein we'll be having a customer experience layer working across the different functions, and then making sure that we are able to build some of these elements to drive the customer experience and don't just depend on the dealerships altogether. Right. So these were the couple of trends, and the one more significant trend that I wanted to talk about is the advent of digital. Now, in our organization, while digital has already been there in play in the urban areas, but the hypothesis was always that in the rural areas, the farmers who are our customers, they are not that digital savvy. And before we invest big onto digital, the company wanted to make a very conscious call in investing. So we conducted a primary research with the help of Nielsen, where we interviewed some thousands of customers in the rural India to understand their digital adoption, understand their smartphone penetration. And what we figured out was quite interesting. 20% of the consumers, they say that digital is their top influencer in the purchase decision. Now, that is significant. And this 20% will just continue to go up and up. Like you can imagine the kind of questions we had asked in the top purchase reasons, like price, the tractor product itself. In spite of all that, digital came out as the top influencer for these 20% of consumers. So this is a kind of a eye-opener for the organization. And that's how we are allocating our digital focus and creating the digital strategy. So I just wanted to start from there, that probably we are embarking on a big drive, but we are embarking basis the feedback from our consumers and how things have changed in the last 1 year, especially. So yeah, thanks, Hemant.
Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll continue to focus our discussion around the consumer, but we are just going to take a step back and get more into some of the basic stuff. So what would be more basic than a consumer journey or a path to purchase for marketers and business leaders? And all of us seem to know it, but at the end of the day, it's a humble consumer journey. Though it may have become more complex, I believe, with the rise in digital, adoption of digital, use of multiple media technologies, etc. But when you speak to people, most of us believe that, you know what, I've got it covered, I know it all, etc. But what 2020 did to us was, while all of us know what we went through, etc., many of the businesses were also left helpless. And all the traditional frameworks, consumer journey cycles that were all created suddenly failed, and they were forced to go back to drawing boards. And we all have a number of examples around us. And the one thing they went back relooking at was the humble consumer journey. So this part of the discussion, I just want to completely focus our discussion on some of the shifts in consumer behavior during pandemic, which has impacted your consumer journey. And as leaders, what are some of the strategies and technologies you are planning to adopt to stay on the top of that shift which has happened? So my request here is, what we'll do is we'll have very pointed response to this. If you have observed a shift in the behavior, I think so it will be very interesting for you to share that shift, keeping your industry in mind, because that's a huge learning. That would be a huge learning for the entire audience. So, I mean, we could start with you, Chander, if you have something very, very pointed and interesting to share, or you could just pass if you don't have. And insight, you could just pass. That's fine.
So I think a lot of examples but let me talk about one of the key examples is shift in like traditionally we have been an industry whereby people used to, like, for an inverter and a battery industry, if you see there is not our e-commerce business was not even 2% of our I would say entire turnover. So this was pre-COVID times. Post-COVID times, you can understand. So we have already the business is almost 25% of our total business. So has been a huge shift. So earlier we were focusing on. So our strategy was okay, fine. We were focusing on aspects of how customers is reaching us. So probably we had only one e-commerce platform whereby people were trying to reach to us. Then what we did was we integrated the entire journey. We found many people are not comfortable going to a portal of an e-commerce site and do it. So on our we created a WhatsApp bot. So it not only enabled any service requests. So you can imagine all the call centers were also closed during a lockdown. Everything just got closed. So this particular bot, firstly, to create a customer engagement, in case you had an inverter faulty, no engineer can visit you. So you understand you are in a situation, there is no call center, no one can visit you. But what we did was, using this WhatsApp bot, at least the WhatsApp bot was asking them questions using a NLP and AI engine built into that. What is the fault with your particular inverter? So in case there was a small fault, they were able to trigger out what happens at certain times. It was just a small overload and it tripped from behind. So these kind of very, very small things, though were tried to, so we were able to solve almost 20% of our calls using this as a mechanism. But also it also helped us in creating a platform whereby if anyone wanted to buy a product, so on a WhatsApp bot itself, who's the nearest dealer to him, once he looks for a particular product, the dealer will automatically connect him, because entire you can understand the shopping places are closed and everything is closed. So this is how we used very effectively artificial intelligence and a machine learning on a WhatsApp bot, which was very effective, and we are now planning to build it, create more I would say features on it.
Ketan, quickly on to you. I would like to repeat the question. I want you to share the shift in consumer behavior which happened during the pandemic and because of the pandemic in your business. Ketan, over to you. You're on mute.
Yeah. So basically, two things. One is we always pick up our shipments from a B2B, and we deliver mostly our shipments into a B2C or a consumer home framework. So two things happened on both the fronts. One is that when we went to B2B businesses previously, we always were very keen, and we kind of lead the industry in our tech interventions with customers. And we used to spend, or the sales team, pre-sales team used to spend a lot of time in terms of getting our customers' API integrated with us, where the data flow could happen through exchanges and not through reports and in QBRs, etc. So I think a lot of customers immediately kind of raise their hand in terms of integrating their systems with ours, where now the data flow is so seamless, so much real time, and allows the customers to draw insights from that, analyzing it, and to kind of direct their business where they need to take it. So that acceleration in acceptance by customers, that happened on the B2B side. And when we are delivering the shipments, I already told you in terms of how our end consumers easily came on to the CLD platform. And we are rather trying to do that. And also we are seeing a lot of nudge and push from that end consumer who now wants to go onto the Blue Dart app. Since we've launched it some time ago, the response has been phenomenal in terms of its download. So in fact, across the value chain of supply and logistics, we are seeing a huge adoption and energy for a digitized tech interface. So that's very encouraging for a marketing business person, or even for our CIO and the teams in the back end. So that's been a tectonic shift that's we have witnessed on both fronts.
Thanks, Ketan. Quickly on to you, Sreeji. What's been your observation?
Yeah, so if you look at the patients, depending on the therapy, the behavior also changed. So let's say it's an acute therapy where you don't necessarily feel too much trouble. They actually took the call, I will postpone my visit to the doctor. Yeah, I will try and connect as much as possible using telemedicine or phone calls or WhatsApp and all those kind of mechanisms. So we had to make sure that the doctors, wherever it was not there, they had that kind of mechanism. So we had to onboard the doctors onto the platform. So during this time of the pandemic, the onboarding of doctors onto digital platforms for them to be available for these kind of patients who would rather only do the remote connect accelerated big time. Whereas when it comes to the chronic categories, there is a need for the patient to see the doctor in many instances. So there we had to make sure that they will connect remotely, but then where there is a need, they are able to come and see the doctor directly. And where we actually as a company also provide a lot of protective equipments, mechanisms to deliver that service, even in that face-to-face visit. So that kind of interventions we had to put in place. But yeah, I mean, I think if I now look at the doctors themselves in terms of our customer experience that they were expecting from us, for the first few months, there was absolutely no physical connect or physical calls allowed. So everything went digital. Yeah, so they had to be delivered things digitally, Zoom calls, Teams calls, where conversations were needed. 100% it went to digital. And then slowly now I'm starting to see a shift to be a mixture as well. So that's what has happened. So technology has played a big role in making sure that the business continuity was maintained.
Okay, Vijay, some quick words from you.
Sure. I think for us it's been a little bit on the opposite side. There's a line I use very often, but I borrowed it from an article I read in the Times of India. Content is king, but context is King Kong. For us, our biggest battle is WhatsApp. So, we always realized in the last couple of years since the evolution of WhatsApp that we are living in a world of too much information. All of us are surrounded by just way too much information. We also acknowledged, and especially in the last 12 months, that we can no longer compete with WhatsApp. A deputy editor can take 4 hours to write a story that may have taken 3 days to put information and research together. The moment the story gets out in the market on our platform, within 10 seconds, it's being circulated on WhatsApp, and people often don't even give credit to the information that they circulate. Our realization, therefore, has been that instead of competing constantly, trying to be the number one, I want to be the first to kind of update the world about this, we are actually revisiting that consistently and saying, what is it that we can consistently add from an editorial perspective? So our content provides a lot of context to the stories that we provide on the tax side. So people who read what we provide in terms of content, they see industry impact because of those judgments, because of those updates that are coming from the government. So we're kind of taking 2 steps back and saying, let us not fight the battle of being the first or fight WhatsApp. Let us consistently create content that people would love to read because it provides context. I'll end this by saying only one thing. I have a 21-year-old son, and we're now father and son having career conversations. He asked me a question, Dad, what are jobs, assignments of the future going to look like? And I told him only one thing. As long as you can consistently find something that machines can't do, you will always be in a role that will make you good money. Stop there.
Cool. So there is a lot to discuss. There's a lot to learn from our own individual experiences. And since we are running short of time, we only have our last 10 minutes with us. I thought we'll open it up for a much more real conversation. So so since the whole theme around this entire panel has been around use of technology, and while we all have seen that over the last so many years, content technology, distribution, marketing have always been some of the core pillars. And even if you look at the consumer journey today, which used to be a single trip to the store, and now he toggles between multiple channels comprising of voice call to email to mobile and desktop side. Then there is a mobile application. He's engaging with you and your brand on a WhatsApp, on a Facebook page, and also he visits your brick and mortar store. And increasingly, most of us realize that there is a better conversion for a customer when there is a much more tailor-made communication which is sent across to him. It's a unified experience, and there are a lot of challenges to deal with when it comes to maintaining this whole thing around unified experience, personalized experience, contextual to his interaction with the organization, because we are all looking in terms of how we can lead the consumer to the purchase funnel. And I firmly believe that technology will always play the role of a key enabler here. And there are multiple challenges with regard to multiple data platforms. How do you create a unified data platform? And since 1998, 99, I have been associated. I've been in digital since 95, 96. And there have been times when in 98, 99 early days, I used to talk about CRM, and I only realized over the last 25 years how difficult it has been for organizations to actually, take steps, and a lot of relevant points have been made here. It's also a lot about mindset, shift in behavior inside within the organization to be more adaptable to reaching out to the consumers, etc. What we'll quickly do, we were talking about the tractor industry, and I can just share this with you that today's farmer is a young farmer, and his consumer journey is much more complex what it used to be 15, 20 years back, because India is today the largest and the fastest growing digital economy in the world. So he's got a smartphone, his data consumption is very high. During pandemic, very, very high consumption of YouTube in terms of the number of hours they spend. And it was not just for entertainment, but also it became a knowledge hub for their farming needs. And their entire communication, they have these little groups where they are also sharing, exchanging mandi rates and what are some of the challenges, opportunities, etc. through Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. Now, when we look this scenario, today, you can very successfully reach out to these farmer segments across India in real time, using the right medium platform with very contextual communication and driving them from the top of the funnel to the bottom, etc. So, Shrikant, I want you to quickly share with us. You made a point that the industry is not as glam in terms of the various other industries, but I think so. Your consumer himself is evolved now. He's more he's more digital friendly, and so if there are if you have some interesting real life journey experience to share with us, I think so that would be very enriching.
Yeah, thank you, Hemant. I would like to talk about two things, and in fact, one is more related to the consumer preference changing, and the second one is more about the digital savviness of the farmers which have come up. So, and both are linked. So just bear with me for 1 or 2 minutes. So what happened is during this pandemic, there was a huge migration from the urban areas to rural areas. The people from urban areas, they had seen much more comfort probably in their lives. And when they went back to their villages, they thought that, okay, we don't have anything else to do. So they started buying tractors. Now, when they started buying tractors, the noticeable shift was in the product demand. There was an upsurge in demand for four-wheel drive tractors and power steering. Now, these were the more savvy people who had lived in urban areas, and when they went back to rural areas, they kind of came up with this massive demand. We went out of production, our inventories was lowest, and the industry, probably people would know that, has done very, very well this year, right? So that's how we are seeing the migration has led to an increase in the savviness of the rural areas. Now, adding on to the advisory aspect and what our company is doing in the real life, you would have heard agri-tech, and now agri-tech is becoming a focus area for the investors. Earlier it was fintech, e-commerce. Now agri-tech is also gaining traction, and that's where Mahindra is also betting big in its farming as a service model, where we have clearly defined roadmap, and we have launched the customer facing apps wherein the product offerings are farm advisory, which means in what kind of soil, what kind of crop should be grown, and what kind of fertilizers, pesticides should be used in the entire farming life cycle, from land preparation to sowing to harvesting. So that is one piece where we have the farm advisory. The second piece is on the soil testing. So that is again very significant, where a farmer can take up a sample of his soil and go to our soil testing laboratories and get the soil tested. The third element over there is the rental. Like we all know the Uber, Olas, and the digital things. So a farmer can kind of search for a tractor which is available online for a rental basis, and it's a kind of a marketplace called Tringo. Tringo is a brand under which it is there. And the overall brand of our this farming as a service is Krishi E. On the Krishi E platform, all these farm advisory, soil testing, the rentals, soil testing, all these capabilities are available. And we are in the midst of building more and more capabilities where a farmer can calculate his profitability when he's growing certain crops. So yeah, I'll just stop here in the interest of time.
Thank you. And I'll just conclude our panel discussion with this last very interesting use case, which Vijay has been talking to me about it, and I really saw the enthusiasm out there. So Vijay has worked with Thomson Reuters for 15 years. And in his last assignment, he was the head of strategic marketing for South Asia. And over the past 3 years, he has been leading the commercial side of the business at Taxsutra. So one of the brainchild has been a platform which he created a year ago based on certain consumer insights, was a digital ebook store for tax professionals. So Vijay, would like to quickly hear from you
sure.
on this journey.
So I came from a completely non-tax background. I was purely a financial services professional, and I remember in the early days, when I used to walk into offices of chartered accountants, lawyers and chartered accountants, they typically like to show these big walls with those very heavy and big books. And I just happened to ask one of my clients in terms of, there was one book which looked like a series.
By the way, Vijay, I've always believed that you should have essentially 3 very important people in your life as your best friends: doctors, lawyers, and chartered accountants.
I disagree with you. Disagree with you. All right. So, I asked one of these chartered accountant friends of mine, saying, ye jo pura series hai, so this is like one book, is it? Yeah, he said, this is an income tax commentary. I said, how many pages is this together? He said, about 22,000 pages. I said, 22,000 pages in one commentary. And then I just asked him this question. You're using this iPad. What if this was available on your iPad? He said, if it is available on my iPad, and if I can copy, paste, make annotations, I can search through the entire 22 pages. I think that will be the best thing to happen to me. I went back to the drawing board and we created Taxsutra Reservoir. Taxsutra Reservoir today has 400 plus professional titles. All -1 publishers in India have given me all their professional titles. 6,500 end users. Little did we know that the pandemic was hitting us in March last year. Launched it on 17th of February. We have 6,500 plus chartered accountants. I'm not one. Who today like to read their bulky books, on a platform that we've created. And it's amazing that some of the larger tax firms and legal firms in India are today willing to make a social footprint by moving away from physical books, because eventually every time a 22,000 page kitab gets printed, there is an environment impact to that. So people are moving towards building e-libraries now. So I'm working on 10 active projects where law firms and CA firms in India are willing to put together an e-library where all their partners, all their employees can come to the reservoir, consume the books of their choice, and do pretty much everything that they want to do with physical books. Interestingly, the statistic at the point at which we started this business was that less than 3% of Indians actually choose an ebook over a printed copy of a book, and across segments. This number in the Western world is roughly about 17 to 18%. So 3% is where I've started. Let's hope we will be at 13 to 15% in a couple of years.
Thank you, Vijay, for sharing this very, very interesting story. Thank you all for sharing very, very interesting views, insights about your customer journey. And I'm extremely confident that 21-22 is a new normal, is a new beginning, where each of us will have much, significant focus on our consumers' journey and the kind of delight we can deliver to them to have a direct impact on our top line and our bottom lines. So thank you so much, and over to you, Agya.
Thank you so much,
Hemant.
Mr. Hemant.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, esteemed panelists. It was a pleasure to have you all. Indeed, I think I'm going to go back with this session with a lot of quotes and exciting thoughts. But I think one that hit me really hard is content is king, but context is the king cog. I think I'm gonna use it again and again in multiple speeches that I do henceforth. So I'm already taking like permissions for that. I'm gonna use this from this speech. Thank you so much, Hemant.
Well, there's a placeholder that does not belong to me. So like I said, I read it in an article in the Times of India. I'm being very honest here. This is not something I've written, but I tend to use it quite often because it means a lot.
Well, it did hit really hard, and I think that's what it's meant for. So thank you so much, panelists. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much, moderator, for taking this ahead. I think it was beautifully curated.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye-bye.
See you.